Hi, this is Mina Nicole, owner of Elegant Occasions Event Center and Ground Zero Business Group. Thank you for joining me for another Talk It Out Tuesday. On this Tuesday, we're going to be talking about getting noticed. How do you get noticed in business? And we have Ms. Brenda Joyce Johnson with us with the Get Noticed Network. So she's going to tell us all about image and how to just better represent ourselves and our business in a crowded field, whether it's event planning, whether you're a beautician, whether you do nails, balloons, whatever it is. We're going to talk to you today about how to just represent your business better, or how to start out representing your business if you're just getting into business. On last week, if you joined us, we had Chris Jones with Classic Carpet Cleaning talking about passion or a paycheck. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I highly recommend that you review that. It's available on YouTube at Ground Zero Biz, as well as on Facebook at Elegant Occasions Event Center. So I really recommend viewing that if you're trying to figure out how to find your passion and what exactly it means to have passion for something. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll let Ms. Brenda introduce herself. Ms. Brenda, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate and be a part of what you're doing. I think it's marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you for joining and accepting the invitation and sharing your business with us and your expertise. So can you just tell us how did you get started, and also just tell us about the Get Noticed Network?
Okay, well, I've been teaching and training in the field of image for about 25 years or more. And I've had a nonprofit organization working with youth, helping them with their self-esteem, helping them to prepare for life as well as for business. I've done workshops and training events on college campuses to help with career preparation. I've worked also in the corporate arena, and I worked for Procter & Gamble at one time, and had an opportunity to train in the area of diversity and team effectiveness. So image is actually a relationship building field. Building connections with people, and how do you do that? How do you stand up and how do you stand out?
Awesome. And what inspired you to just help people just be aware of their image and improve upon their image?
Well, it started with myself, just feeling that there was something lacking in my life. I just, felt that I didn't have what it took to compete. Quite frankly, even after graduating from college, moved to Washington, D.C., and because I grew up in a small town in Ohio and then lived with my grandmother in high school, and it was actually what they call the holler. I don't know if you know about Appalachia, but there are places deep in the mountains called holler where only God can find those places. And so after going to West Virginia State College, my first job was in Washington, D.C. And you can imagine that the culture, the climate in Washington, D.C. is totally different from what I was exposed to. I had an opportunity to take a modeling class because of that, which opened my understanding to a totally different world than I had ever been exposed to. And that was the field of image and presence, how you present yourself. So it fascinated me. And so from there, I began to pursue it. After working several government jobs, I began to pursue the field of image. And so after about 30 years, I've gone through, as I said, corporate, having my own nonprofit. I had a fashion boutique at one time, and here I am today. I've written, I'm working on my second book.
Awesome. And that kind of leads into my next question. So for the past 2 months, everything's virtually been shut down due to Corona. And that has impacted so many people, whether they have a brick and mortar business such as myself, or whether they have like a home-based business. They've been impacted by Corona. So how have you been, your business been impacted by Corona? And what have you been doing during this time to continue to grow your business?
Well, the COVID has actually been a wake-up call, not just here in the United States, but a wake-up call to the world. That's how I see it. And when you have a wake-up call, that means that you have to accept the unexpected. And I think that's where we all found ourselves. No one could have imagined what has happened to all of us. And so when you meet the unexpected, you're either prepared for it, and I don't mean that you know exactly what's coming, but you're prepared for it. In other words, you've developed some fortitude in your life and some stamina. That's how I see it. So fortitude and stamina, and an attitude that tells you I can do this. And I know you've been there, and all of us, we have, as women, we have all been in that place. We question, is this, can this be? What can I do to face this challenge? And so we've all had to stand up and say, hey, I can do this. Yeah. So either you have the mental fortitude and the aptitude to face the giant, or you don't. So I've had to face the giant, and I'm a woman of prayer. And so the first thing I do when I'm facing the unexpected is I say, okay, God, here I am. What does this mean? Number one, how was I prepared? I'm almost finished with my book, and so I knew I needed to spend more time with the edits to my book, so I've done that. I also needed to build my expanse when it comes to the Get Noticed Network. So spending time with God, I knew that I needed to expose women to the value of prayer. So in my network, we have what's called the e-course. It's online at www.getnoticednetwork.com. The e-course exposes you to spending intimate time with God in prayer and in reflection. And so I I called out, a number of women that I know, and then I also put a post on my Facebook page asking women if they wanted to take the e-course, spend 40 days in prayers, spending that time. Didn't know how long we'd be locked in, but spending time in prayer. And so there were about 20 of us who responded. Some of the women had taken the e-course before, and some of the women, 12 of them, had not. So we spent time, 40 days of rethinking, reflecting on our lives, in a time of renewal. That's how I would say. It was a blessed time. Once a week, we made a call, and for 1 hour, we spending time just reflecting and asking one another, what did the Lord teach you this week? So what has happened from that, my outreach has gone from one city, which was in North Carolina, to 5 different cities.
Awesome. And that's one of the benefits of this whole coronavirus lockdown. I've met so many people from just across the country that I've been able to connect with on Zoom, and that has really expanded my field personally to be able to interview people, different business owners. So I totally agree that this has been a great benefit, that it has forced me to kind of go outside of my geographical area more so. to meet new people. So that has been a great experience for me as well. And as far as the Get Noticed Network, so can you tell us exactly what the Get Noticed Network is?
Okay. The Get Noticed Network is a sisterhood of professionals who love mentoring and sharing their skills with the next generation. Um, we call ourselves Titus 2 women, and if you're familiar with scripture, Titus 2, chapter 2, introduces us to the concept of women who are mature. And maturity isn't necessarily age, but we prepared ourselves in such a way that we can teach and train others. And so the Get Noticed Network are women who we have a multiplicity of fields and disciplines. Some are teachers and educators, some are in the medical field, some are in the financial field, et cetera, et cetera. And you could be a minister in your church or a Sunday school teacher. You could be a parent. Parents are exceptional teachers many times because they've learned a lot of lessons. So we are women who tend to be 40 plus, and we believe that we prepared ourselves to share our experiences with others.
Awesome. And why is it important to be noticed as an individual, or whether you're in business? Why is that necessary?
Women sometimes feel insignificant or second class. We are absolutely not that. Women have the greatest influence, I believe, in society. We're called upon not just to manage our own homes. Many times we're managing businesses. Many times we're managing elderly parents. Many times we are community leaders. And therefore, women suffer twice the stress levels that men do. So heart disease, whether it's heart disease or whether it's depression, whether it's panic attacks, women suffer these mental illnesses and other diseases in twice as much as men.
And that is so true. That is so true. And I noticed by researching on your website that you specifically focus on women. And
yeah.
And the explanation that you gave really resonates, especially with me being an African-American female as well too. There's a lot of things that we deal with that men don't necessarily deal with. And a lot of times us as women, we get overlooked for a lot of stuff as well. And I know that there's people that struggle with that, whether it's a physical being noticed or whether it's being noticed in their career field as well too. So there's a lot of different areas that we silently struggle with, and kudos to you for recognizing that and wanting to help women just get through that challenging time.
Yes, we suffer with, oftentimes we suffer because of, society has oftentimes also, women have been the objects of sexualization, whether it's in movies or in the media, in our relationships. We've suffered violence and disproportionately to men. And therefore that causes an unhealthy self-image because that results in shame.
And self-image plays a huge part in how you represent yourself, and for me personally, how you represent your business. One of the reasons why I kind of created Elegant Occasions Event Center was because I couldn't find a event center to host my personal events that reflected my personal likes, decor, design, and stuff like that. So for me, creating Elegant Occasions, it was a reflection of who I am as an individual. So my business definitely reflects me. If you see me out in the streets or anywhere like that, I am Elegant Occasions. You know, whether I'm in the streets, whether I'm at my business, you know, it's all about image and impression, because people look at that, whether you know it or not. And one of the first things my mom always told me is, whenever you go out this house, make sure that you're representing not only yourself, but you are representing me. So you can't go out the house looking any kind of way at all.
Absolutely.
And at 40 years old, I still take that to heart, and it's definitely true. And even in business, you know, first impressions, that goes a long way. And can you just go over and tell us exactly what is a first impression for those that might not know that's watching, and why is that first impression important?
All right. Within the first few seconds, the person it meets you will meet you. They will determine whether you're a friend or foe. And some people don't know that. They think it's what you say to them, but actually the first impression is what people see, because we're visual creatures. It's what we see. So I oftentimes, when I'm teaching and I'm sharing that the whole concept of image, first of all, I want to say that image is a likeness. It's a likeness. And it's the impression made. It's the impression that you make. And you make an impression, as I said, visually. The ABCs of image is appearance. Appearance is the A, the B is behavior, and the C is communication. And of course, we are communicating with our appearance. We are communicating with the way we behave. But first of all, the silent messages and the body language. For instance, some people don't know that pointing can be offensive. And you may be just gesturing because you want to make a point, but it still can cause a person to be defensive, and they may answer or they may respond to you maybe by looking away, and sometimes looking away means, I wonder how I should take that. So that's a silent message. Silent messages matter. They really do. When it comes to behavior, manners, we teach our children manners sometimes, and unfortunately these days our socialization skills are not good because of technology, and we use our devices. Sometimes we think that's socialization, but it really isn't. You can never beat eye-to-eye contact. Image has everything to do with whether you're able to look a person in the eye. Looking a person in the eye creates trust. It always creates trust. When you're looking away, again, that's suspect. People are wondering what you're thinking. Maybe you're looking at your watch and you only want to know what time it is. However, we don't know what other people are thinking when we're doing these things, but an impression is made. A first impression. You were asking about first impression. So again, the ABCs of image, your appearance is first, not what you say and how loudly you speak. So when we talk about get noticed, when I talk about get noticed, many times it's coming into a room and you're silent. But how are you sitting? Do you slump in your chair? When you go to an interview, when your prospective employee comes out, is this the way they see you sitting? That makes an impression. It could create the impression that you're lazy, and perhaps you would be the most diligent person for the job. However, an impression has been made.
That's true. And nowadays, first impressions are like virtual. So in being in business, or even as a employee looking for employer looking for employees, our first impression most of the time is visual. So we're checking Facebook, we're checking Instagram, we're checking websites, just to kind of see exactly what that is. For instance, me and my husband, we're going to dinner later. So the first thing I check is the internet. So I want to see what your website looks like. I want to see what your food looks like. I love to eat, side note, but I want to see what your reviews are. So I know that there's a lot of my clients, the first thing they do, they go on the website. Then when I talk to them, oh, I looked at your website and your website looks really nice. So that drives them into wanting to call. That next step is, okay, what is my presentation over the phone? So when I answer my phone, my business phone, I have about 2 or 3 phones around here. But when that business phone rings, it's Elegant Occasions Event Center. How may I help you? I've called businesses where you call them, they answer the phone, hello. That is like one of my pet peeves. Please don't answer your phone, hello. Because again, that's an impression that people are getting from you, and that's the impression they're getting from your business. And then of course they physically come into your business, and then they actually see you and see your business. But the sale that I've learned for the business and impression starts when they decide that they want to visit your website, you know, and then they look at your social media pages and they're looking at pictures and stuff like that. So all of that, you know, plays hand in hand into what is your appearance, you know, whether that's a virtual appearance or whether it's a physical appearance. And there's a lot of businesses that unfortunately missed the mark on that. Case in point, I had a vendor a few weeks ago who showed up. He had on shorts and a t-shirt. I didn't know who he was, but he was the picking up chairs. I didn't know that. His truck didn't have any markings on it or anything like that. And the first thing I'm looking at is, well, I don't know who you work for or who you are or what business you're representing, you know? So that kind of made me skeptical as well, because when me or my staff go out, you see our logo, Elegant Occasions Event Center, we're marked, we have on our shirts, and we look professional because we want to project that professional image. And then, like you said, the behavior comes into play as well as our communication, and it's just a well-rounded package. And I'm glad that you went over the ABCs of impressions, because that's something that everybody can remember and apply.
Yes. Yes. You know, people want to know that you're qualified and that you're competent. And so image should display and communicate those two things. Your business, that you're qualified, you know, again, you know, when COVID came, I can do this. It's an attitude. So image is basically, it's an attitude. I once had one of the vice presidents of Estee Lauder visited a local department store, and she talked about the success of Estee Lauder. And one of the things she did is she made an A. She reached up and she made an A, and then she stood with her legs apart and she said, I want you to remember this. She said, you're grounded, you've got both feet planted. And she said, the A is attitude. She said, that's everything. She says, attitude is everything. It's your confidence, it's your strength. It tells the world that you're unstoppable. So, and I really believe that image, that's one of the significant keys to image. When you walk in, you may be very nervous. And someone says, you know, being nervous, you've got butterflies in your tummy, but all you have to do is make those butterflies fly in formation.
And you basically answered my next question, and that question was basically, how does image contribute to the success of your business? And that goes back to what you just said. It's about attitude, it's about confidence, you know, all of that package together determines, you know, how far you're going to go in business, because you can have the best business model, but your attitude sucks. Okay. And your presentation sucks. And personally for me, I am big on attitude and presentation, because when I'm looking for vendors for my business, whether it's a caterer, whether it's someone doing balloons or photography, whatever it is, I'm looking at everything that you just mentioned. So it's not just about the quality of your product, but I'm looking at, are you timely? What's your attitude? How are you interacting with my staff? What is your physical presentation? Do you have any markings on about your business? How are you dressed? What is your presentation of your business? So all of that is definitely important to me as a vendor and as a consumer of different businesses as well too. So I'm looking at whether it's a lawn guy, you know, how professional are you, you know, how you're cutting my grass, but most importantly, how are you treating me as a customer? So that's definitely important to me when it comes to business. And last weekend, I was sharing earlier, I had a memorial service at my business. And one of the family members, he was just so grateful that we were able to just go above and beyond and make sure that their service went off without a hitch. And he said, you know, any event that I'm having, I would have here, because as long as I know that you're here and your hospitality is on point, I know that everything else would be on point as well too. So to me as a business owner, that meant a lot to me as well too. And it shows that I'm kind of going in the right direction with just making sure that I have the right attitude and the right presentation when it comes to my business and my staff as
Can I
well.
add something to that? You know,
Yes.
and one thing that I mentioned is that a business should, you know, when you show up for business, you should communicate as your image communicate that you're qualified, you're competent. And the third part of that is I care. And I really think that what you just mentioned, it sounds like that third part, I care, that person could tell that you care about them. Because whenever you have a loved one pass away, of course, that's the first thing you're thinking about. I want to connect with a business that cares about what I'm going through. And another thing, you don't want just to present a service, but you also want to show empathy.
And that's exactly the point, because I know at repast, you know, I've had to sit on the front row of funerals, you know, and I understand how hard that is and how hard it is to deal with the vendor. And a personal story for me, I was burying my aunt, and the funeral home just wasn't friendly at all. It was about money to them. And I had to come outside myself a little bit with the lady who I was working with, because I'm like, at the end of the day, this isn't about money or anything like that. It's about service. And as an individual and as a business owner, with that repast, I went above and beyond to make sure that that client knew that, one, as you mentioned, that we cared, and two, that it's not just a service. You know, we want to make sure that this is one less thing that you have to worry about. So if that meant me and my staff picking up plates, you know, doing stuff that I knew the family wouldn't want to do, we're there to do that. And this is something that we do provide for repasses, because I know most of the time the families, you know, aren't in that mental state to decorate and to set up and to break down for an event. So we just want to make sure that we can just make them feel less burdened as possible, because they're already going through enough. And that's just, you know, really important. And this goes back to what we mentioned last week when we were talking about passion or a paycheck. Is this business for you a passion, or is it a paycheck? Because if it's a passion, you're going to approach it totally different than this is just another client, you know, and you definitely don't want to do that in certain circumstances, especially when you're dealing with a sensitive subject as a repast with the families. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Brenda?
Yes, I would like to add to that when it comes to business. Well, one more thing, and that is sometimes businesses forget that the reason, the way to be successful is to understand that you're solving a problem for someone. And solving problems means sometimes that you're going to be facing, again, the unexpected. You're going to have to be a problem solver. And that's where image comes in also, because some businesses aren't good problem solvers. They get agitated, they get irritated. If you ask for another dish of dressing or another silverware, I've seen waitresses, they get very irritated. Solving a problem for people, if you can do that with a smile, that's part of presenting a competent image and that you're a professional. Professionals smile, professionals give deference, professionals know how to problem solve.
I agree with that. I totally agree. And again, that goes back to the whole passion thing, because a lot of, people, unfortunately, are working for pay. So to them, it's just a job, versus someone that may own that business. They're going to go that extra step to make sure they smile and give you that extra straw or the salt and pepper, because they're invested in it, as opposed to someone just working a job. But I have come in contact with waitresses that just love to serve, and you can tell that they just love to serve and that's their gift. And that actually happened to me last week. I was in Charleston and I had the most bubbliest waitress, and she was like, I just love people. And you can see that through her service, So she was more than happy to get you an extra straw or the salt and pepper. But that's not the case, unfortunately, all the time. But when you do come in contact with someone who's just operating in their gift and purpose, it's a difference. And I know we'll get to that little gift part later on, but you definitely can tell. And with that, transitioning and to talk about your book. So this book that Ms. Brenda has written, Get Noticed, Insider Secrets to a Confident and Classy Image. So can you tell me about your book and what inspired you to actually write a book about, again, image?
Okay. Number one, I had spent a lot of time, when I had a fashion boutique, I've spent a lot of time with women, with their wardrobe, going into their closets, into those personal and private places, looking at 3 closets, some women of clothes, and tags on half of them, literally, and talking to them, and they're saying, oh, well, I've gained weight since last year, or I lost weight, and I don't like this color. And so I've done a lot of advising and consulting on women, their needs, the woman who would sit with me and say, I'm going to get a nose job. And I'm looking at her saying, okay, beautiful nose, beautiful features, in my opinion. So what I've discovered with women is that we find a lot of reasons to complain, and we're unhappy with who we are. And it doesn't matter our size. Some of the tiny women are too small. Some of the full-figured women, they want just a little bit more on the backside. We find lots of reasons to be unhappy and dissatisfied with who we are. And advice is needed. We need confidence. We need actually to learn how to love ourselves. More than anything else, we need to learn how to love ourselves. And so first it began with me. I took a modeling course, and I had a very hard time looking in the mirror. So I discovered, even from my own life, that we're unhappy. And so the best way to become happy with who you are is to educate yourself. Whatever it is you don't like, if you can't change it, find ways to improve. Get the knowledge so that you can become thankful and blessed, and feel that whole emptiness in your life with satisfaction and gratitude. So I wrote the book so that I could provide steps to confidence, to help women feel more fulfilled in their lives, so that they, they understand that there is a value in their voice. And their voice, your voice oftentimes can be just stepping out and feeling confident. You're saying something when you can feel confident. So the book has keys to business etiquette, social etiquette. It tells my story of lacking self-esteem. The first chapter in the book is about identity crises, because I think that's where we start. We have an identity crisis. We're unhappy. We're unhappy with who we are, and we're trying to find ourselves. So I help women take steps to find themselves. And I know that might sound a little strange, a little weird, but it's true. You have to become happy with who you are, no matter what size, no matter what color or race. We have to settle in on the fact that God made us beautifully and wonderfully. The scriptures say we're fearfully and wonderfully made. God took his time when he created you. I believe that. And your life has value, and your life has a purpose, and we all must find what that is.
And I think somebody needed to hear that as well. And at the end of the day, you have to own who you are. Whoever that is, you just have to own it. And personally, for me, I might not be a size 2 or anything like that. I don't desire to be a size 2, but I own who I am. I own my size. I own how I look. I own, every mole I have, every dimple I have, I own it, And at the end of the day, like you said, God has created all of us individually. So everybody's not designed to look like Beyonce, or designed to look like Kim Kardashian, or be that person. You have to be who you are, and just, own who it is that God has made you to be. And for those that can't, or don't know how to, I think a part of that is just coming to know yourself more. I mentioned a while ago when we had the session on mental health, I started seeing a therapist when I was looking to get married. So me and my now husband went to a counselor. So we did the counseling, but throughout all that, it helped me understand why I am, how I am as a person. Mm-hmm. And that helped me just really understand me. And at 40 years old, I just turned 40 in May, I'm comfortable with who I am. And I know there's a lot of people that dread turning another age because they're not comfortable with who they are or where they want to be in life. But I think that just comes with working on yourself and spending time with yourself. I love spending time with me. I did that yesterday. I read a book. I laid on the porch. I drank me some wine. It was just me. Yeah. But you have to really get to know yourself as a person, as a woman, as a business owner, however it is. Just get to know yourself and get comfortable with yourself. And I understand there's a lot of people that's not there, and that's why the Get Noticed Network or the Get Noticed book, that's something that can definitely help you get there as well. And we'll have information at the end of this broadcast with information on how to purchase the book as well too. And tied into all of that, the whole confidence and the visual image and stuff, how does that tie into presence? Because that's one of the things that you mentioned in your book, the importance of presence. So what exactly is presence, and how is that different than like a first impression?
Okay. Presence is standing up and standing out. When you think of, there are individuals who walk into a room and there's something about them. And you can picture someone maybe that you notice them walk in the room, and there was something about their carriage. Maybe it was something about the way they dressed, and you could tell they put time into it. you knew that they valued who they are. And it wasn't about you, but you knew that they valued their stance, where they, they sat in a place maybe that caused you to turn around and look to find out where they sat. And all of that has to do with presence. They probably didn't say a word. And then there are times when they'll say something, they were well spoken, they were thoughtful. So, and they were intentional. All of those characteristics are present in presence. It makes a person take another look.
That's a great way to sum it up. It makes a person take another look.
Have you ever been to the mall and watched people?
Yes.
Well, oftentimes they say that when you watch people, that an impression is made. You size people up. That's another way it's expressed. You size them up, and you decide, well, they're in a certain income bracket, or they're educated, or they're not educated. And all of that has to do with presence. And like I said, they may say something or they may not, but it's an impression that is made by the way a person looks, or the way they look at you, whether they're confident and whether they are well-spoken.
And all of that ties into how to stand out in a room full of people. The confidence, the presence, the physical presence, how you carry yourself, like you said, how you sit, how you talk, how you interact with people. All of that contributes to being noticed and getting noticed, in a large room, especially when it comes to networking. I know that a lot of people struggle with networking. I'm not the most sociable person. I'm social, but I'm social to an extent. But I know in a room, I'm confident in myself in a room, and I don't have any issues with, networking with other people. But one of the things that I know a lot of people struggle with is basically figuring out how to establish that presence, and really understanding exactly what it is and how to, I guess, allow it to work for you, basically. And presence isn't necessarily going into the room and shouting who I am.
No.
At all. And the person with the most presence doesn't have to say anything.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And I was a big fan of Scandal when Scandal came out. And one of the things I remember from that is Olivia Pope or her dad basically said that true power lies in plain sight. And that goes back to having presence. So the person with the most power, most presence isn't always the person that's talking about it.
Exactly. I have a saying, Mina, silently we speak the loudest. And you wouldn't think that would come from a book called Get Noticed, but it does. Silently we speak the loudest. And oftentimes, you talked about networking. The way to make connections is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's very comfortable to go sit next to someone you know, but when you're networking, most of the time you're not there to sit with someone you know. Oftentimes it's for business, and even if it's for pleasure, you want to expand your acquaintances, you want to expand your, as it's very obvious, you want to expand your network. And you do that by breaking that whole comfort zone. You have to. It's not easy, but it's necessary.
And one of the tricks that I use to do that is if I'm going to like a business networking function, I go by myself, because that allows me to branch out and talk to other people versus me going with someone I know, I'll probably be more apt to, stick around and keep their company. But if I go by myself, I have to branch out, sit at a table with someone and start talking to people that way. And personally, before I go to any event, wherever it is I'm going, I'm praying before I go. And when I pray, I'm asking God for divine connections, because I know personally for me, everybody's not assigned to me, and I'm not supposed to meet everybody. I know some people that go to networking events, they try and meet everybody, or they try and meet the important people. I pray that God sends me the people that's assigned to me for me to have a divine connection with them and a lasting connection. I'm not there just to get cards, just to say I got cards, but just to actually make connections with people, and those connections will hopefully develop into a relationship, whether it's personal or business, down the line. So that's very, very important to me. And along with that too, because that kind of skipped ahead to our other questions about networking, but just wanted to backtrack a little bit. Also in your book, one of the things that stood out to me, you mentioned the gift package. What exactly is the gift package? And one of the things you said in the book specifically, you said that unless we invest in our gift package, we will probably go unnoticed.
Okay.
What did you mean by that statement?
Okay. Education, education, education. We already mentioned getting to know yourself. God gave us innate skills. Some of us are gifted, maybe we're gifted singers. Well, guess what? You still need education. If you're going to become great, you have to invest in education. Some of us are very creative, we're artists. Some of us are gifted when it comes to math or other academic subjects. Some of us are good writers, but you still have to invest in your writing skills, taking courses, training and development. I can't speak enough of that, because I actually have a business, Training by Design is where I started the Get Noticed Network. And training enables you to invest in your gifts, your talents, so that you become a standout person. You become one who is exceptional in what you do. And when it comes to getting noticed, you need to be exceptional and not ordinary. And you also need to differentiate yourself from others. If you're starting a business, how are you going to be different? So you have to do research. This is being very, very intentional is important if you're going to stand out. Intentional about knowing who you are, investing in your skills and your talent. So absolutely, your innate skills, meaning the gifts that God gave you, and your gift package is also through mentoring and networking. That can become a part of your gift package, because you're embracing the talents, the skills, and the knowledge of other people. All of that goes into the package to create that exceptional and that excellent you that you want to present to the world.
And that says a lot right there, because a part of that gift package, like you said, is mentoring. So mentoring, that's helping someone else, through what it is they're going through, or helping them to get to where you are. And that's kind of where I am right now in life and in my business as well too. God said, okay, now you've learned some things, and now I need you to give back. So now what I'm doing with Ground Zero Business Consulting is helping those business owners that's just starting out, because when I started out, I didn't have a lot of people to ask questions to. A lot of people who I went to, they didn't want to talk to me because they thought I was trying to steal their business or steal their business ideas. So I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. So now that knowledge that I learned about starting, I'm sharing that with other business owners as well too. So at a certain point in your career, at a certain point in your business, I think you should give back, because there's someone else that's looking to do exactly what you're doing, but they don't know who to go to or how to go about it. So I vowed to myself, once I get to a certain place, I didn't want to be that person at all. I didn't want to be that person. So I think it's very important to just mentor somebody, whether it's, in business or personally, because it definitely makes a difference in their lives. I've had mentors starting out as a young member of Delta Sigma Theta. My advisor, she was one of my greatest mentors, and it's because of her that I've kind of got thrown into leadership. I've gotten better with public speaking, so she definitely helped groom me and contributed to the person who I am today as an individual. So that is very, very important.
I've been told it takes about 5 mentors, to really advance in business. You might have a financial mentor, you may have financial, you may have a spiritual mentor, you may have a marketing, social media mentor, you may have a best friend, someone older or someone younger. Some mentors are younger than you. So ladies, don't, you may want to find someone who's really skilled in what you do. They can be a mentor also. So mentors are significant in your life. And again, I include those in the gift package because it is a gift from God. And some people say, well, what does God have to do with my business? And I've heard you mention that spiritual aspect of your life several times. And I join hand in hand with you on that one because the Get Noticed Network, we are Christian women. And I value that and I prize that because without spiritual guidance, I could not advance. I would not have this even interest. Because I think, I don't tend to be a me-focused person, but there's a lot of work involved in what I do, a lot of work. And sometimes it gets pretty intense because I'm trying to keep up with and consult with a number of women. And it becomes challenging.
Okay. And we do have a few participants on with us today, and I just want to open it up to see if they have any questions that they would like to ask myself or Ms. Brenda. And if so, please state your name and where you are currently located if you have any questions.
Good afternoon. Yes, I am Cheryl Thompson Williams. I'm from Smyrna, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. And Brenda, I do have a question. I enjoyed the interview. In these days that we're so concerned about social distancing and the COVID-19, the tradition of shaking hands, that has been stopped. So how do you feel about that? Is this something that you think just temporary, or is this going to be a new normal, not shaking hands?
All right, okay. I've been faced with that question a number of times. We've adopted fist bumps, and some people don't want to be touched at all, or elbow bumps, and again, that doesn't work for some people. This is what I recommend. We don't know how long this is going to last. Number one, I recommend that you pay attention to body language, to the other person. When you're in their presence, that's part of etiquette. That's part of good manners. When you approach someone or when they approach you, you want to be careful that you do not move forward when they are moving backward. You just take notice. I mean, people will usually tell you what they like and what they don't like. I have a girlfriend at church. Well, she was a girlfriend in Ohio. She didn't hug people at church. And she's a wonderful person, but she doesn't hug. She just said, and she put up her hand. And so people will usually tell you. So you want to be aware, socially aware of what people are saying with their body language. That's number one. And number two, ask. And then you'll know. Is it okay, even if it's your cousin, is it okay if I give you a hug? I just came from Ohio and I was with family. And some of them were saying, oh, they were doing this. And then others were saying, give me a hug. I'm okay with hugging. And so if you are fearful, let people know. Just hold up your hand like that. Let them know. Not now. So we have to communicate how we're feeling, and then everybody will be okay. And once we communicate, we just don't anticipate someone to step into our space when we've asked them not to. That's not what we expect. But we want to acknowledge what people are asking us to do. Does that make sense, Cheryl?
Yes, it does. And that really sort of leads into my final question is, how do you handle that when someone is not respecting your space and they are not following the social recommendations for distancing? How do you speak to them without trying to offend them?
Okay. Well, we know that, we learned that, 7 inches generally is the personal space. You just violated personal space if you get closer. And so we've been asked to stand 6 feet apart, perhaps. You cannot, you can't legislate for other people, but you can share with them in a polite way. If you could step back, you have to make your request known.
What are some last words that you would like to leave with some of the viewers about any advice on how they need to just continue to improve upon themselves, to get noticed, and to enhance their image?
Okay. Number one, I want to share this with you, and that self-care means everything. Self-care. Self-care is, when you're on a plane, you're on a flight, and they ask you if we have an emergency, what do you do first? You put on your own mask before you help other people. Unfortunately, right now, in my opinion, we have a lot of unrest going on because sometimes we can go overboard, violate, as we said, other people's space and other people's property when we're not in control of who we are and what we're about. Number one, self-care is prayer. Before you advance into culture, society, and decide to tear up something that belongs to someone else, spend some time, and I noticed you said that too, Mina, spend some time in prayer. Spend some time getting some instructions from God. Take an inventory. What can I do? One of the lessons, the last lesson in my me time, that's one thing that, we created, a me time challenge, spending time with God. That's the most valuable thing that you can do, is spend me time. So in self-care, spend time meditating, reading scripture. Settle yourself down and understand that we all have agitations. We all have irritations, but that doesn't mean that we can violate other people. And that's the most distressing thing for me right now, is the way we're not caring for, other people and being considerate of others. So your image and how you're coming across, remember that your presence matters, how you show up in the world. My last chapter, or the last lesson in my me time challenge, we spent 40 days in my e-course. And the last lesson was be the change you want to see in the world. It's about you. You be the change. So what can you do? There's a pandemic going on, and I see a lot of people helping people. And how do you do that? You've got neighbors around you. Some of them don't have enough to eat. Some of them have lost jobs. Cheryl specifically has started a prayer time for some folk that she knows. You know, prayer helps. And our spiritual foundation will determine how we can be the change we can see. And it was about Martin Luther King. And believe it or not, it was a time very much like this one. Very much like this one. Do you know how Martin Luther King changed the world? He sat with God. And his daughter will tell you that he was a man who sat with God and listened to God. And he had peaceful marches. Anything that violates and destroys other people's property, I don't care how just it might seem, it is not just. That is unjust. So look at the way he made change come about. And you can do the same in your own life. So image, the first impression that you make, sometimes we destroy what we could have by how we're showing up in the world. Even as African Americans, sometimes people who would have been, would have received us in a very cordial way have decided they don't want anything to do with us because of the way we have shown up in the world during this time of crises. That means Black people and white people. So because we're in this crisis right now, I read today that 80% of women during times of civil unrest, it's 80% of women that suffer stress, heart issues, blood pressure issues. It's not the men, because we tend to take on these things emotionally. It affects our children, it affects our grandchildren, it impacts our spouses. So during this time of unrest, that's my advice to you. You know, settle down, spend some time with the Lord and ask him, what should I do? So that we can show up and impact the world in a positive way, so that we can be the change we want to see.
Well said, well said. And how can viewers get in contact with you and the Get Noticed Network, as well as purchase your book?
You can purchase my book. My new book is The Get Noticed Woman. It is, and it will have a facilitator's guide. We will have online networks, very much like what you're doing here, connecting with women, both online and person-to-person in different cities. Right now, there are about 5 different cities, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and others, but you'll find that online at www.getnoticednetwork.com. So, and then we have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is a private Facebook page, Get Noticed Network USA is how you'll find us on Facebook.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Brenda Joyce Johnson and Ms. Cheryl Thompson Williams, for being our participant on today. Thank you so much for the information that you shared. I hope that this helps someone, as I know it has definitely helped me. As with all my special guests on here, I always learn something, and I hope that you all learn as well too. Next week, we're going to be talking about partnerships, and that's one of the things that Brenda talked about today. actual relationships, building relationships, and the importance of relationships, whether it's in business or whether it's personal. We're going to talk about that on next week. But feel free to, again, just look at past broadcasts on our Facebook page at Elegant Occasions Event Center, or on YouTube at Ground Zero Biz, that is Ground Zero BIZ. And thank you all for joining. I am Nicole. Thank you for joining for another Talk It Out Tuesday, and we'll see you on next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank